All right, we are live. Welcome everyone to Full Sail Partners' very first LinkedIn Live. We are going to allow a little bit of time to have some people join. I thought I might start out with a little bit about Full Sail Partners. For those that are just finding us for the first time, Lindsay will actually be in the background. She is going to be helping me out with all of the technical aspects. But just to give you a little bit more about Full Sail Partners, if this is your first time actually attending one of our sessions, for well over 20 years, Full Sail Partners has been a trusted Deltek partner. For the past 2 years, we were recognized as the Deltek Reseller of the Year, and prior to that, for our marketing excellence. For us, it really is about the people. Our employees, who are some of the best in the industry related to Deltek Vision and Vantagepoint. And it is also about the people we help implement or upgrade. And we are always looking for amazing clients that understand the value of having a partner. And today we have Mark Carpenter with KTUA, who is one of those clients that understands the value of having a great partner. And so we're so glad to have him join us today. And I do see some people making some comments. So I'm glad to see that people are seeing this. And so just a couple more announcements. We have allotted about 30 minutes today for our first LinkedIn Live session. This is being recorded and we will provide it on our website as well as YouTube. And then this will also be available here on LinkedIn to view again. If you have someone that you think needs to see this, be sure to send it to them, or if you need to come back. With this type of event, we won't be doing our normal feedback process like we normally do with our webinars, but we encourage you to let us know through the comments or even via email what you thought and if you want to see more of these in the future. And so great. I think that we have a good group that is starting, so we will go ahead and get started. And so today we are here with Mark Carpenter with KTUA. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mark, and for taking time to share your experience with our audience. Great. Well, let's first start off with a little background. Can you tell the audience your role with the company, a little bit about KTUA, and maybe even the size of your firm and the number of projects you do each year to give just some insight on how they might compare to you?
Sure. I'll start off with a little bit of kind of company size. So, we're a smallish company. We're about 30 people. As such, I don't just get to wear one hat. I've been with the company for 26 years. I've been leading their IT for the last 20 plus years. I still actively pursue work and manage work as well. So I'm not just an administrative side of the office then. And then I've started over about the last 3 years taking on more of the managing partner role. And that's causing a whole new set of learning. I'm trying to figure out where to focus my day and my time. Some of that was looking at this whole transitional process was one of those key features along the way. Over the last 5 years or so, our total revenues have been around 6.5 million. K2A aspect of that revenue has been about 5. I'm giving you a sense of how much sub-consulting work we have.
Yeah.
We usually have somewhere around 250 active projects or so a year. Our staff as a whole is somewhere around 65% chargeable, including administrative staff. We usually have kind of 10 or so larger projects there that might take a third of the labor each year. And then usually about 70 of those 250 then end up making about 90%. So we have, when you look at it that way, you have 150 or so projects that are 15-20% of the labor. So it's really the fact that we have a lot of jobs that might go into a second year or a third year, but the level of effort on those jobs has really trailed off as we've gone into construction observation or some other phase of the project.
Great. I think that gives a great background of your company to our audience. That's quite a lot of active projects for a 30-person firm. So a lot of things that as we start to get into it and on how you're handling things related to thinking about planning within Vantagepoint. And so let's talk a little bit one of the things that we are constantly hearing from our clients is that they would like to hear from their peers related to upgrading from Vision to Vantagepoint. And the firms that have actually expressed the most interest throughout the years, especially after that last webinar that we did, are firms that are your size. Many of them are small, medium businesses. And so that's why we did this particular edition specifically for those types of firms. And many of them said exactly what you just said, that they have one person that leads the charge with the Deltek system because they're smaller, they have multiple hats. And so today, we're going to spend some time providing them insight on that experience. So for those watching, feel free to ask questions and provide comments, and we're saving time at the end. So Mark, for my first question, your firm went live in December of 2021. So as a small size firm, why did you decide to upgrade from Vision to Vantagepoint?
We'd been watching it for quite some time. It wasn't a quick decision. I've been monitoring, as DPS, Deltek for Professional Services, was announced back in 2017, started looking at it and trying to see if it made sense for us. And some of the key pieces that fell into place there was trying to go browser agnostic. We're a mixed platform. We have both Macs and PCs in the office. So that was a big piece of trying to look how we're moving that forward. And then we had to wait for DPS and then becoming Vantagepoint to actually build in the tools we needed. So we had to wait for resource planning to become an aspect of that we could actually utilize. We liked the aspect that the iAccess graphical interface was then being integrated into it versus a separate product. And then as the announcement there that, Vision was going to be replaced by Vantagepoint, we started looking at that a little closer. But, it finally took until Vantagepoint 3.5 to be able to be at the point that we finally saw the capability that we felt we needed. So we started working our way through that in February of 21. So it took us, 10 months to kind of work ourselves through it. And I thought it was only going to take us 3 to 4 months. So it took a little more energy than we thought.
Okay, great. That gives a lot of insight. Now, you guys were on some previous versions to that as well, right? And so you had gone through.
Yeah, we go back to Semaphore. So we transitioned from that in 97 into, or we transitioned to Semaphore in 1997. And then in 2007, we shifted from Semaphore into Vision. So having gone through those past conversions, my role had changed a little bit through those different versions, but I knew we had some bumps in the road. So I was really making certain we took our time, which is why we didn't force the 4-month tenure and we went to 10, is we found some things along the way. And it's like, all right, it's better to go slower, make certain my front office admin staff are ready to go, and that we have the resources necessary to then train the rest of the staff and have a smooth transition.
Great. Well, when we spoke earlier during our discussion, you also mentioned that a lot of competitors were actually asking you questions like, don't you think that the product is too much for you? As other small firms evaluate that question, what do you think is most important for them to keep in mind?
I think for us, it was looking at it that since we're not just using it from an accounting perspective, we're also using it from a resource planning and project management perspective, that when you look at some of the other competitors' products, you have to understand they may be strong in one of those arenas, but they might be mediocre in the other ones. And that's just not going to really cut it. So it's always making certain that, quite often someone will come at you and they'll say, well, we're better at it than this, but you have to then dig deeper and understand, well, how well are they going to perform in these other areas and make certain it's of an appropriate connection. Because one thing, whether you're upgrading, in this case, from Vision to Vantagepoint, or you're going to a new product, that's change. Change is painful for everybody. Change is always going to cause concern from your staff and always going to cost you. So it's making certain that, okay, it's either we go through some of that change as far as learning a new system as part of the upgrade, or you're going to kick out and go to a new system. So having a partner there that you have technical resources to reach out to, that you've been doing that with, and you understand you're going to get some responses is a good value. And then in the scheme of things, some of it was trying to understand from a cost standpoint. That's been thrown at us sometimes. And as most software has gone to some type of a subscription service, when we look at our overall cost, Vantagepoint, which is something every staff member uses, is less than 10% of our annual software cost. So it's on the lower end of what we're seeing on a per annual basis than for other software. So it's not been something that's been, from a budgetary standpoint, has been a deal breaker for us either. And then the last piece would be it's knowing that it's got more capability than what we're using today. Is actually a nice feeling to have, knowing that we can plan for instance, we're not using CRM right now. We thought about it. So it's another opportunity there that we could add a module in and be in a good place to move that forward without having to necessarily go out and find a different product.
Mm-hmm. That was all great information. I think you provide a very interesting perspective coming from originally the IT side of the house as well, understanding some of those expenses and the things that actually that it really takes to be able to transition, either upgrade or move to a completely different product. And from our experience, we have found that a lot of people that it's not always greener on the other side. And so is the best way that I can put it. And so it's an interesting concept as I hear different people that talk to different competitors. And I would just sort of echo the things that you said regarding the different modules really being one system versus really a separate system, especially when they say the word integration. That's meaning it's not the same system. And so that's where you tend to run into further complications.
And I'll add just a little bit to that, Sarah. I would encourage anyone looking at the transition to include someone from the front office, someone from the project execution that's going to be doing the project management side of things, someone definitely in the IT arena to understand the underlying moving parts, and then obviously someone at a C-suite level then that can provide the bigger perspective to everyone else. For me, I was wearing 3 of those 4 hats. So that allowed us to not have as many voices through the discussion. It was easier for me to report back to my partners on delays, and they understood it. But I would encourage, it's good to have someone be the voice and the drumbeat behind it. But you need those different perspectives in to make certain you're not jumping too soon. If there is a delay, why there's a delay. All those pieces come into play.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I think that's the biggest thing that we've even seen on the implementation side is that how we have had to implement has changed related to Vantagepoint and how we approach our clients. We really encourage that we not make it the silo accounting, that it's just the accounting group. Let's really incorporate the marketing team, the project managers. Let's make this a cohesive solution that works for the entire company. And that's really been a sort of a game changer, I think, with Vantagepoint. And so I'm going to go ahead and I don't see any questions that have come from our audience, but just want to encourage you, if you have any questions for Mark, please feel free to add those. So as our team met with you, Mark, and conducted the readiness report, what were some of the key things that you discovered?
Well, what I discovered is not everyone has great best practices on an ongoing basis. So since we've been with, Semaphore for a while and then Vision, what we found is the merger of clients and vendors, that piece to go to firms. So we had about 120 clients that were also vendors. So we had to be prepared to consolidate those records. But we also found we had about another 100 just duplicate entries in either clients or vendors that we had to figure out how to merge down and get to the singular record. We also found, since we were doing resource planning, we had over 300 resource plans that had issues in them in some capacity. That became my responsibility to fix. So that was a joy. But then we also found it was really looking at favored reports and saved searches, trying to understand what of those were still applicable, how many individual permutations did you have, how do you merge that across? So when we went through all those pieces, it took myself and one person in accounting, with the two of us took on the burden of trying to figure out how to clean everything up. So we spent somewhere between the two of us 80 to 100 hours of going through and cleaning and merging and working our way through our first pass. And then we asked your team to rerun the readiness report. We hadn't quite gotten rid of everything. There were still some more things we had to go through and deal with. And it probably took us another 40 to 60 hours after that. So total 120 to 160 hours across two people over about a 2.5, 3 month period of time is about the pace that we were able to go through to get us to that standpoint. Wasn't too painful. I think one of the things we found is we joked with your technical staff that we told them we felt we were pretty plain vanilla. And they said, oh, everyone tells us that. And then they ran the report and go, oh, you are pretty plain vanilla, because we didn't have a lot of customization. And I think one of the things your staff offer are these transition copy scripts as an additional service that for us, that ended up not being a necessary thing. We can make decisions and say, no, we can recreate the searches. We can recreate the favorite reports within Vantagepoint within a few days. We really had that few to deal with right out of the gate. But if another firm has done more customization, has more things, then to know that there's an option there those can be migrated over as well was great.
Yeah. Well, a couple of comments on some of the things you said. So with that many different project plans that were non-compliant, I'm sure Raina became your best friend as you were going through this.
Actually, I didn't tap into Raina yet. I got to tap into Raina there when we were in the preview environment, and it took me about 2 weeks to break it. We were trying to work through the invoice approval workflow and implement that, and realized we found we had some issues in the way the security roles were set up. So Rain and I became very good friends going through security settings across the different roles to try to troubleshoot how I was breaking the system. Because I actually ended up breaking it 2, if not 3 times within about a 3-week period before we finally got it resolved.
Yeah. And I think that was regarding the number of licenses that were available? Was that what it was related to?
No, I was running into some issues on tiering through the different security settings through the roles. We had some incompatibility. We had something missing that wasn't enabled for one role, that when you went through to actually execute the invoice approval, it was getting stuck. It couldn't complete the process.
Right.
I truly hung the system there that they actually had to reboot us on your end. Since we are hosted with Full Sail, I was reaching out to Heath and others going, help!
Oh, I do have some questions that have come in actually regarding security. So I thought it might be good to go ahead and a good time on that. So Frank has asked, how is it creating the user roles and securities?
It's not too painful. We only have, I'm going to say 6, maybe 7 roles. We've tried to keep them fairly simple. So we have a staff, a project manager, kind of a senior supervisor, principal, accounting, and marketing. So it was going through, most of those share a lot of core similarities to them. A lot of it is a differentiation between who can see cost and who can't see cost, or at what level. So it did take a little while. I ended up creating a spreadsheet that I could track through what all the settings were, to then kind of plan out of, okay, if this role has this settings, what would I be changing for this role and why? And that really became a nice tool when I was going through it with Raina, on trying to see where it looked like we had a glitch. So that took a little extra time up front, but it allowed me to clean it up and then be comfortable setting that as you go forward. Because after that, it's just a new employee coming in, you set their employee record up, and then you go into roles and you attach what role is going to that employee. So that part's very simple. It just took a little bit to step back and kind of keep the roles as simple as possible would be my recommendation, because there are quite a few windows to tear your way through.
Yeah. So another question regarding security. Do security settings in Vision carry over to Vantagepoint?
Yes. I'm going to say it that way because the settings are not identical.
Right.
So there are some the way they're organized is a little different. So if you're familiar with the security settings in Vision, as you look at them in Vantagepoint, they don't look exactly the same. The same information is there. It's just figuring out it's a little different organization of it.
Yep. And that's why we always recommend people start with security first as they're going through it. So after we do the readiness report, that's actually the first thing that we work with people on, just because there are new features. So you have to accommodate for those. So thank you for that question. There were some other questions that came in as well regarding customization and stored procedures, and also asking about whether you had a lot of user-defined fields and tabs. I think you sort of answered that, but maybe I'll go ahead and just pull up one of these from Lori. And so just to maybe talk a little bit about whether you had any customization, stored procedures, or a lot of user-defined fields, tabs, and user-defined info centers.
No and no, and not a lot. So actually, I don't believe we had any stored procedures worked into it. That was one of the levels of how plain vanilla we really were. I'm familiar with some of the interfaces, and a lot of it is how are you integrating with some of the other systems on the way some of those are coming into play. So we've been trying to understand over time, is that something we actually want to consider or not, or try to integrate more within Vantagepoint. For the user-defined fields, we did have some, and then it was a reevaluation of why did we have them, what purpose were they serving, and did they need to come over? So they do come over, they do get converted. The challenge is then it's going in within the screen designer and understanding where they're going to show up, since they're not part of the standard Vantagepoint areas. They get set off to the side, so to speak, so that you do have a little bit of work of programming visually where they're going to show up for the users.
Yep. All right. I have a couple more questions that have come in. I think you talked about this a little bit in some of the other things that you said, but Antonio wants to know overall, how long did it take for the complete conversion?
So we engaged with you all in February to start the process. We were ready in May. We had done the cleanup by May to be ready for the preview environment. We ran into a little technical glitch with Deltek and getting the codes to get the preview environment set up. So we ended up not getting into the preview environment, I think, until July. We lost a little bit of time in there. It took us about 3 months in the preview environment to build in enough time while we're still doing our jobs to kind of test things. And at that point, then we were in Vision 4. 4.5 was released. So we asked to not just do an update of our data for the sandbox, but to also do it as a 4.5 implementation. I think it took us another, I'm going to say 6 weeks to kind of test 4.5 to make certain that there weren't any big enough changes to be hurtful. So then in November, we scheduled with you guys and said, hey, we always shut down between Christmas and New Year's, so I don't have a lot of staff working. Is there any chance we can convert just before Christmas, take advantage of a week and a half of quiet time to make certain everything came over cleanly, get things set up for all the users coming back in January, and it made for a very clean transition.
Great. All right. So there was another question that came in from Aubrey. What were your biggest challenges after go live? Is there anything your accounting team or your project managers miss about Vision?
I don't know if there's anything that they can truly say they missed about vision. I think there was familiarity. So one of the things that I've done is kind of taken the initiative to pull together some how-tos. I will say that the built-in help leaves some things to be desired as far as understanding what you're trying to accomplish. So being the one kind of digging through that, I have enough graphic design background that I've been going and doing screen captures and actually stepping people through a way of walking them through, and have published 4 or 5 how-tos for different things. Starting off with, we did out of the gate when people came in January, we had, we did a Zoom meeting with everybody. I screen shared and walked everyone through signing in, what the dashboard looks like, how to get the timesheets, the basics, fundamentals to make sure they were up and running. And then we started biting off these anywhere from 4 to 16 page that are mainly graphics with some bulleted steps through. And that has been pretty effective so far. So thinking through, what are your key processes that keeps your business running?
Yep.
I think that was our biggest challenge, is we knew we couldn't afford a loss of a month of invoicing. So it was making certain front office staff understood the invoicing process, and we were all willing to walk everyone else through what they were going to have to do as a project manager, approving an invoice, because that was totally new. That was something we weren't doing that way before.
Right. That's great. Well, another question is leading me into my question. So Lori is asking, did you add any new modules as a part of your upgrade? And I'm going to add basically, what are your future goals? Because I know that those two sort of go hand in hand.
Yeah. During the upgrade, we did not add any modules. We were already using resource planning as our additional module to the basic accounting aspects of it. So we carried that across. But one of the things we are considering is we've been doing our lead and opportunity tracking within a separate database for 20 years. And it's been something that we've got an upcoming retirement that's happening, that is like, okay, the person that was running that, controlling that all those years isn't going to be here anymore. So we're using it as a chance to step back, as we know we're going to be bringing in a new person, and try to say, okay, does CRM make sense? And I think one of the beauties of it is we're trying to understand, what legacy data could we flat file and import in and have access to? Do we do it as a separate parallel system? But to have the ability to say, okay, we can stop development on one, pivot over with a simple add-on, and have it integrated into the rest of the system is of good value. We're also looking at trying to streamline expenses. Right now, we're still old school. It's all been paper expense reports. We're trying to prepare everyone for, trying to either use all the way to the mobile time and expense module to grab receipts that way, or at least being able to submit it through the system to be able to catch things more digitally. I'm expecting probably 75% of the staff to be excited and the other 25 to drag their feet. But those 25 are going to drag their feet on no matter what we do. So that's just the way human nature works from that standpoint. And other than that, it's just continuing trying to figure out. Vantagepoint has made access to project information, project financial information, a lot easier. There were some more hoops to jump through in Vision to try to get there. Some of the parallel between the plan and the project, and how you could not necessarily be in sync all the time, that's gone. Knowing when someone puts an hour on a timesheet, it's job to date hour on the project now. You don't have to wait for it to be submitted or posted or anything else. It's live data. So trying to help our project managers understand they have access to more information than they did before, and how to use that, how to start making more informed decisions. So it's been more of a training focus as the other piece.
Okay, great. Well, if we have any other questions, let us know. I think I've hit on all of them. I think maybe there was one that was a follow-up. I'm going back. And And so, Frank, I think we might need to follow back up with you individually. So I saw your question of how are you able to retrieve all of the user role settings? And so it may require a little bit more. And I don't know what your thoughts are, Mark, on that particular question. So how are you able to retrieve all the user role settings? We have customized so much over the years. So the user roles really do come over. It's the cleanup aspect that we really recommend.
So here's what I'm willing to do. I will take the Excel spreadsheet I pulled together that grabs all the security tabs for the roles. I will strip out our pertinent data, that's us, but I'll share the template from that standpoint, because it did take me a few hours to work my way through each page and figure out what all the settings were. But that might give it an opportunity on how to step your way through how to track those roles and understand what the security settings are with them.
Okay, great. And it looks like Kate is already working her magic in the background as well. She's with Full Sail, and so it looks like she's going to be helping Frank. So I show that we are actually a little bit over as far as about 31 minutes. And so I don't show any other questions. And so, Mark, any last thoughts or things like that that you can think of that you would give as far as like final advice or things like that?
If anyone in the audience is thinking about the conversion, I would encourage the conversion from the experience we're having within Vantagepoint compared to Vision. I recommend going through the upgrade process. There's enough change and benefit in the ease of access to the information and the interface that it's worthwhile. I do highly recommend that. Don't have one person take it on as it's their project. It does need to be a group environment to carry it forward, to make sure you have enough checks and balances in there that is each group ready to take on the changes. Those would be my two pieces. I'd recommend not waiting, not waiting until you can't wait any longer. Make the jump, but do so in a planned fashion.
Perfect. Well, I'm gonna put Frank's comment up there. So thanks, Mark. And there are some individuals that have given their email addresses that are interested in that spreadsheet. And then Ashley here, thank you so much for your time, Mark. This was super helpful. I would also appreciate that spreadsheet tool. So lots of thanks and kudos from everyone. And so, Mark, I really appreciate you joining us today. I think it was a very insightful and very filled with a lot of great information for our clients that are small, medium businesses that are looking to move from Vision to Vantagepoint. And for those that are wanting to get in touch with Full Sail, feel free to either send us an email at info@fullsailpartners.com, or you can visit our website or our LinkedIn page. And then as a reminder, we did record this and we will be posting it on YouTube. It'll be available again through LinkedIn, and then we'll also have it on our website. And thank you, Lindsay, for getting everything set up in the background, and for the Full Sail staff that has joined. So thank you so much.
Very welcome. Have a good day, everybody.